On this Community Wednesday, we'll be doing another episode of rating subscriber builds. On this episode, we'll be looking at the second weapon that was submitted by Tom. This is the MK2 Carbine. And remember, this is a review, not a gun guide. So no matter what I say about this build, and whatever changes I may recommend, it will not be the same as an optimized build listed in a gun guide. This was supposed to be a loadout consisting of the Milano and the MK2 Carbine, but considering how last week's episode turned out, there's no way in hell that I'm going to be running the Milano. So, let's take a look at the build. The build consists of the monolithic suppressor, the FSS 20-inch factory barrel, the tack laser, the variable zoom scope, and the cartridge sleeve stock. Since no explanation was given, I'm assuming the monolithic suppressor was here for the range and velocity, the factory barrel for the range, velocity, and recoil, the tack laser for ADS and its stability, the variable zoom scope to increase its potential at mid-range and long range, and the cartridge sleeve I'm guessing was for looks or for stability and those extra 6 shots you get when you start out with it. I was told that the intended use of this build would be mid-range, sometimes CQB, and train defense. Train defense, by the way, is more typical in Plunder when you're just trying to maximize your XP. And yeah, you can also do it in normal Battle Royale to get a lot of recon information, but you'll typically find a team holding it throughout an entire game of Plunder. So let's check out the stats of his build, starting with mobility. For ADS, you can do a half scope accurately at 260 milliseconds, but if you want the full stability, you will need to wait until 380 milliseconds. Compared to marksman rifles and sniper rifles, this is extremely fast, but compared to most weapons, it's on the slower side. It takes 4.3 seconds to reload from empty, and it takes 1.3 seconds to add 1 bullet. So that means it reloads just as fast as most non-magazine rifles. Its mag cap is 6, and this cannot be increased, which is not very good. Its movement and sprint speeds are surprisingly good, so if you have to, you could technically run around with this. And its ADS strafe is pretty good compared to other marksman and sniper rifles. Its sprint out and tack sprint out times are extremely fast, but you shouldn't be sprinting out and hip firing with this weapon. Its stability is pretty good at 1.25 T, but when you hold your breath, that becomes 0. At 909.1 meters per second, this velocity is pretty slow for something that's supposed to be used at longer ranges. And its rate of fire is 1.46 rounds per second or 88 rounds per minute, twice that of the Kar 98. Adding these stats up, we get a mobility score of 28. Its recoil is surprisingly good, even without holding your breath. It fires off a few shots in a tight group, moves a bit, and then fires another small group. Because of this, it gets a recoil score of 48. Its damage, though, isn't really that great. It can't get a one-shot headshot at point-blank range against someone with full armor. It will require 2 shots to the head to kill someone, or 3 shots basically anywhere else. Or you can get another 2-shot kill by getting 1 headshot mixed with any shot anywhere else. On the bright side, this damage is consistent up to infinity, so the only thing that will be adding time will be bullet velocity. Even with the 2-shot down though, it won't be enough to be competitive with most other weapons at most ranges. And this will be a lot harder to do because you do have to get at least 1 headshot, and any shot you miss will increase your TTK drastically. Another problem brought by this though is that it only has 6 bullets, so that means you can only down 3 people if you are absolutely perfect with getting 1 headshot and 1 shot anywhere else, or you can only down 2 people if you hit every single shot anywhere in the body. So it gets a final damage score of 20. And when we add up all the categories, we get a final build score of 96. This is pretty normal for a sniper or marksman rifle, although I will say that the reason it got such a high score is because of its insanely high recoil score. If its recoil would have been more in line with other sniper and marksman rifles, its final score would have been somewhere between 75 and 78. So how would you use this build? I'm not entirely sure. I guess it could be used at medium range, but even if you get the 2-shot kill, it'll just have the same TTK as most other long-range weapons in their first damage range. But if you find yourself fighting against an AMAX at medium range, which it really excels at, you won't even be able to fire off your second shot. And at longer ranges, basically, your best bet is to wait for someone to stop moving, shoot them in the head, and then try to get that second follow-up shot a lot faster than they can figure out where you are and beam you. You may find this a little bit easier when someone is camping, but even then, you never know what's going to happen. They could just duck and replenish their plates, and they may know where you are and come up, bait you, and then boom, you get instantly headshotted. Your best bet trying to use this build is to basically ambush someone and do it from a medium range distance. Even in Plunder, where most people only have 2 plates, you'll find yourself being outgunned in most situations. And up close, no matter which mode you're in, you're just better off using it as a melee weapon instead of trying to actually quickscope someone. And using it at longer ranges, I wouldn't recommend it. I would avoid coming to a sniper to sniper battle because you'll just lose pretty much every time, especially with that glint. And with that bullet velocity, you really shouldn't be pushing those ranges that far anyways. And just remember, you do need that one headshot in order to get remotely close to competitive time to kill. So it will be a little harder and you will have to be aiming down sights for a little longer, so someone might see that glint, but it's necessary, otherwise you'll be taking a second and a half. So does this build exceed where I was told it would? Well, for mid-range, I guess that's the best way to use it. For CQB, definitely not. And for train defense, yeah, I can see it working because you can probably be shooting down people as they're parachuting in, or you're usually in a pretty good spot to defend from, but any other weapon would be just as good at that point. So are there any changes I would make to this build? Yeah, actually, quite a few. They won't make the gun into an OP or even viable weapon, I guess, but it will make it better at what it's trying to do. I would first swap out the 20-inch factory barrel for the 24-inch factory, and this is to drastically increase its bullet velocity, bringing it in line with the other marksman rifles. I would then swap out the variable zoom sniper scope for something like the 4x flip hybrid or the Cronin Pro or even the VLK. I'll explain this in a minute. And lastly, I would swap out the cartridge sleeve because sure, the aiming stability is nice, but those extra 6 bullets are really irrelevant. I would swap this for the ADS stock or the stability stock if I needed a little bit more. So the reason I recommended switching out the sight for something with less zoom is not just for better ADS, but to basically remove the glint. If you have to engage a sniper, you don't want to give away your position with glint because that's basically a free headshot for them, and since you can't get a one-shot headshot, that's an instant kill for them. Even if you hit their head, it means nothing. So by using a lower zoom optic, you'll find it harder to line up the perfect shot, but if you're in a good position, you'll gain the ability to get a little extra time to take out an enemy before they can figure out where you shot them from and return fire. Even after all these changes though, this weapon just isn't that great. All the changes and its better stats can't make up for that extremely low damage. The MK2 Carbine just doesn't have a place in Warzone. Its inability to get a one-shot headshot makes it useless. Its mobility isn't even that great compared to Cold War rifles, and those can get one-shot headshots. Its rate of fire may be good, but that can't compete against something that can just instantly one-shot you. If it was a 2-shot anywhere in the body, maybe then it would be a different story, but like this, it just has no place. And especially because of the sniper rifle, you're limited to 46 rounds with this. So if you want to use a sniper rifle or marksman rifle that you could have a little faster rate of fire with, you might as well just use the SKS and EBR because they do everything this does but slightly better, and you can actually spam those. Or use the right tech if you don't mind a slightly slower rate of fire, but actually be able to down someone with a headshot. My final recommendation is basically don't use the MK2 Carbine. If you want to use it for the memes or whatever, go for it, but don't expect to actually do good with it. In a fair fight, you'll get outgunned by basically everything. So that's the MK2 Carbine. What do you think about it? Do you think it's as bad as I said it is? Have you ever run it? And would you ever run it? Let me know in the comments. And if you want me to rate your build or do a gun guide on anything, or if there's any topic, question, or idea that you have on basically anything, let me know on here or on Instagram and you may see it on the next Community Wednesday. But that's the video. If you enjoyed it or if it has helped you in any way, leave a like. If you got any questions or comments, leave them down in the comment section down below. And if you want to make sure that you never miss another video, be sure to subscribe. Thanks for watching.